Welcome all, this is War Monty, and I'm going to teach you 14 tips about Spellforce Conquest of Io, owned by Gravity. This game is beyond fantastic, so if you're thinking about getting it, get it. It's awesome. But anyhow, let me dive into it. And this guide is for beginners, intermediates, and advanced players. Tip number 1 is to pick the right mage for yourself. Alchemist is great at healing, uses potions, Necromancer summons the undead, has massive armies, and Artificer basically crafts items for your units and heroes. Or you could even create your own playstyle, but I do suggest starting with one of the mages. Tip number 2 is picking the right location. Golden Fields is the best starting area, it's the easiest, and there's lots of quests there. And Gillyshire is the most OP location because you could actually increase your stack size by +1, which is a bigger army. However, it's pretty challenging in that area. Tip number 3 is pick the right difficulty for yourself. This game plays a lot harder than most games, I would say. So if you usually play hard, probably play balanced. And also be cautious about who you go against in this game, because for example, there's like phantoms in this game, and they take 0 damage almost from melee troops. And as you see, I'm clicking on this guy, and it shows I'm taking more damage from any melee troops attacking these guys. So, if you show up to a fight like this, have magic. Tip number 4 is don't always auto-do battle, especially when you see some units line up red. Unless you have Death Defy on all your units, which basically means they don't die as long as your army wins the fight. For example, this reason right here. Because if you do auto-do the battle, you could lose some troops, and that will really set you back. To avoid from being set back from your army being not full is, when in doubt, always manually do the fight. And have a filler army nearby that can always top off your army whenever you lose a troop or two. Tip number 5 is a combat tip, and it basically is if you're like outnumbered or outmatched, you just have to use some tactics to win. Because if I straight up fight these guys, I will straight up lose. And by the way, how you speed things up is you just press spacebar. But so I have options here. If I obviously go invade up the stairs, I'm gonna lose. So what I'm actually thinking in this scenario is I'm going to flank to the left over here. That way I could split up their army. So I'm going to just move all my troops left. And don't feel bad for using crazy tactics to win a fight, because if you're playing on a hard difficulty, most matches you're going to be outmatched from the start. And so you basically have to use the best techniques to make yourself win, which feels super rewarding when you do. Tip number 5 is I tried to knock down one troop at a time, basically, unless there's better opportunities to actually hit other things. And also, if you could lock down their range, it's great, because if you lock them down, they're going to take damage when they leave your melee troops. So if it's shown I could do like 10 damage to one of these guys, but maybe 50 to another, I'm obviously going to pick which one will do more damage. But my true goal is to eliminate one at a time, that way they could attack me with one less unit each turn. Or maybe 2 if you do really good. Tip number 6 is get Defy Death on each of your units and Follower on them. That basically makes them so as long as your army wins, your unit doesn't die. So I'm not worried about my guy dying here at all, because I'm planning on winning this fight. And Follower makes them absolutely free. Now, I don't suggest, getting that stuff on tier 1 units, but units you're going to be rocking on your main army should have this. I'm talking free. I'm talking no deaths, ever, as long as you win your fights. I'm talking you gotta get, it's fantastic. For example, Adele, I could purchase a Paladin, which has Defy Death as a perk on it. And all I have to do is equip a Follower gift, which will make this unit absolutely free. And you can make glyphs, or you could purchase them or find them throughout the map. How you make it is from the Artificer. And then on top of that, the Necromancer, you could actually craft a guy with Follower or Defy Death. Tip number 7. Alchemist makes potions, Artificer makes artifacts, but the Necromancer makes units, which is undead units. To give you an understanding how to do this is each one is going to require a certain thing, which, for example, Necromancer requires souls to actually craft a unit. To craft, you must understand the difference between dots and bars. Dots, you need 3 dots to make a bar, and a bar short of any dots is incomplete. So Necromancy is a little bit different than the others. It requires more death than life. For example, there has to be more purple dots than green dots for you to craft something. So if I was to craft this blood golem over here, basically I'm going to need 2 bars of purple and I'm going to need 1 bar of blue. And so all I have to do is make this the same up here, and which is what I did is I put random items, and basically I actually put too much. As you see, I got a leftover dot of blue and 2 leftover dots of purple. So I could actually remove that. And it's one of those things you gotta basically find out what makes what. Everything's up in the air. You just have to put in combos and just see what makes what. And when you're happy with the items you use, just click craft. Tip number 8. Now this is just a very straightforward one, but you know, just keep your apprentice groups always healed before you engage in a fight, because you don't want any, reckless deaths. And there's many ways to heal yourself. For example, you could cast this aid on your units, and that will heal them over time. Aid is the way you could heal undead. But if you're trying to save on mana, you could always just go in the Mage Tower, which has 100% health regeneration, or in that usually has like 50 to 200%. Tip number 9. Now let's talk about your economy. So in this game, basically, your Mage Tower needs to be very mobile, and you're going to be moving all around the map. But as your resources start to expire, like see these only have 1-2 more turns of resources on it, you need to move to the next best location for your tower. And also, your apprentices need to be building or changing their locations of their lodges. But yeah, so you just levitate the tower and move to the next best location. And I highly suggest always having a, apprentice group protecting your tower, because if your tower gets sieged for 3 turns and taken over, you lose the game. Tip number 10. You could meld Wisp to a Allfire to capture it. And so just a regular Wisp works. All you have to do is click the meld button. And if you want a bigger property around it, all you have to do is recruit the Greater Wisp. And that will actually take a bigger area around it. And with the powers of Fast Forward, we captured this. But yeah, you could just take them everywhere around the map, and it will extremely boost your economy. Tip 11. Let's talk about traversing. Now, you could always catch a ride from your tower, which is really cool. You could just fly around and go places, but the most important thing you need to get is something that allows you to walk over water, aka like rivers, and also mountains. Getting a pure glyph pathfinder or crafting one is super important, or even just finding one that allows you to go over the mountains, but it stacks on your whole group. And so you could put it on any unit. You just got to make sure that guy never dies. For example, mine has Death Defy on it, so if he dies, I still could traverse around the whole place as long as I win the fight. Every apprentice group should have this, because you're no longer, walking around the mountain or the lake. You're going through it. You're going directly to where you need to go. And it just helps you so much to progress. And there's also spells you could cast for traversing. And the Artificer can craft it with 1 Adamite and 1 green bar and 1 blue bar. But yeah, that's the recipe right there. Tip number 12. Let's talk about support. You always want a unit that could deal massive damage or also heal your troops. So if you're Alchemist or a Artificer healing is the way to go. And if you're undead, you want a guy that could revive all your dead units that died. Which is insane. Reviving or healing is the way to go. For sure in this game. Tip number 13 is get a lot of workers. Workers are part of the main story quest line, and they also include having harvest and mine abilities. Dwarf workers start with a mining boost, which is the best thing you could get for mining. So if you're trying to build a bunch of artifacts, units, or potions, or anything like that, I highly suggest getting a bunch of workers and just having them go around the field. And I don't suggest having more than one person when you're harvesting. I just suggest having one go harvest and then having a patrol protect them. But yeah, they just could go around the map, and they're also great scouts. And let's dive into tip number 14, last but not least, is kennels. So as soon as you get a chance to make kennels, build them. Because there is a room you could craft in the kennels that will make your animal troops absolutely free. And so you could recruit like bears, jaguars, and just all sorts of cool stuff. And I'm talking every single animal in the game is free. It's not just the ones that you could recruit. So as soon as you get the chance, get this. Once you unlock room expansions, what you're going to want to build is the feeding pit. The feeding pit is what will make all your animals followers, and that's with not even equipping follower as an item on them. So it is just one of the most OP best things you could get, but it's also fun if you like rocking a lot of animals in your army. If there's anything you'd like to add to this guide, please put it in the comments. And by the way, I only do videos on fun, addicting games that I love. So if you like this, please subscribe and throw those thumbs up. And I'll see you in the next one.
Yes.
And after you follow this guide, you should be seeing a lot of this happening on your screen. Alright, you guys take care. Bye.